Chambers, November 17th. Like to have roll call, please?
Jonathan McKay.
Here.
Michael Snar. Bill Learman.
Here.
Bob Osborne.
Here.
Michael Albright.
Here.
Nick Evelyn.
Here.
Matt Perky.
Here.
We have one absent council member. What is your pleasure?
Move they be excused.
Second. Motion and second to excuse the absent council member. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Member is excused. You have before you the agenda for the special meeting. What is your pleasure?
Move be accepted as presented.
Second.
Motion and second to accept the agenda as presented. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have accepted the agenda. Mayor Stanford, you're on. Sorry, you got your mouth full. Sorry.
There's been some changes. We're going to do,
John, could you speak up, please? I'm having trouble here.
His mouth is full.
yeah, doing the best I can with a mouthful. This is
Come on,
also-
Joe, it's
This is
smart.
supper too, guys. Anyway, there were some changes. We've added, I don't know, I left my notes in my office. We've added some money for the Murphy Theater out of the hotel retained lodging. And I'm doing that on a percentage basis, which then relates to a monetary number. But we're going to give them about 70% of the hotel lodging tax fund. We're going to give 15% to the Historical Society, and then we're going to retain 15%. If somebody comes along sometime during the year, we think it's a worthy thing to do money, support somebody with some money, we have a little bit left over. So that's the change. Have we got any other change?
The what?
Did we have another change besides
Main Street,
Main Street's been
and
added?
then, for animal welfare as well.
Yes, that's been added. But I think those are our only changes.
I know as far as retained hotel lodging tax goes, I've advocated a similar type of thing. I know I've talked to Brian about it and some other people. That should probably go to committee though. I think if we're gonna change how that process works, because that's essentially, from where I'm sitting, that's essentially a kind of drastic change to how that money's being held. And we should codify that if that's what we're gonna do, rather than just pull the money without making any changes to the law.
There was
My 2 cents, but.
There was a meeting yesterday of the I guess of the doling out committee. That's what I'm going to call it, for lack of a better term. And there was some really hefty discussion. I was there for that meeting, and when we left it, they were going to meet again. Correct, Brad?
Correct.
And then we were going to have a committee meeting to discuss those changes. And that was gonna happen maybe before the end of the year, we weren't sure, but I know there's a meeting scheduled at 10 o'clock on the 28th.
I think so.
Something like that. And Councilman Perky brought up exactly what I said in the meeting, that it should be run past the committee first, any changes before we go forward. So you spoke my mind, Councilman Perky.
Well, we just had a meeting here a month and a half ago, where we're telling people to apply, and we're gonna defund that entire line. We need to rethink how this is gonna go forward.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm coming from a place where I support the idea of creating these, I always use the word endowments, but rather than use that, I support using that money totally differently, like we're talking about. But I think that definitely needs to be a meeting for us to hash out.
So, and that was discussed, and then, Mayor said this after the committee meeting, and something like that was discussed, but, if council feels that there should be a meeting, then we can have a meeting and have everybody present, and we can go through those steps. and Brad, you're kind of the president of that committee. Even, I mean, you know, Taylor's the recording clerk, and then Danielle's the committee, a committee member. So, you know, that all has been discussed.
Yeah, my idea behind this is actually came from that meeting.
Sure.
Jonathan, that I
Sure.
stepped in, 'cause I thought, wow, you know, you gotta kind of come and you gotta beg for money. But if you knew that Shelby knew that she was gonna get 15% of the lodging tax each year, that would help her budget.
Well,
But if the income goes up, then she knows she'll get a little more. If the income drops, she knows she'll get a little bit less.
and I'm in a very awkward position here. I want everybody to know, and I'm gonna say this on the record, that, you know, I have a relationship with the Historical Society Director. So I'm gonna use the Murphy Theater in this case, because I don't wanna look like I'm doing something. Yes, and this has been tossed around so many times on what is the best process. I mean, first, when we got these funds, when everything got changed, it came to city council, and, you know, we had people applying, we had Main Street apply. Brad, I don't know if you ever did talk to Darcy or not, but, you know, we had several people applying, and then all of a sudden, we decided, well, maybe council is not the best way to go about doing this, it needs to go to committee. Well, then the committee was like, you know, let's form another, you know, a committee of non-council people to be able to dole out these funds. And it has worked to a certain degree, but yet, you know, we termed them blue bloods yesterday in the meeting, and it's been the Murphy Theater, the Historical Society, and also Wilmington College. They have been the stalwarts of these funds, and, you know, we have said we want people to apply, and also the fireworks, the flyers, and the banners for the downtown come out of these funds. And so, you know, the funds are being used, but they're being used by a few, and we've termed them blue bloods. And so why I like the idea of giving money to the blue bloods in a way that just keeps it going, I'm fine with that. But, you know, if the council feels like we need to have a committee meeting to do it, I'm fine with that, to stick with the original plan that came with that came out of that meeting yesterday. And Mr. Mayor, I understand exactly what you're trying to do. I get it, and I have nothing bad to say about that plan, but, you know, if council feels it needs to go to a committee. And I'm only saying this because I'm chair of that committee.
That's why I'm asking the questions. I feel like I missed a meeting yesterday. I'm a part of that committee. I feel like I missed a meeting yesterday, and I missed a lot. And I probably would prefer to hear about that before the mayor told me how we were gonna spend that money next year. So I'm a little frustrated and disappointed that that's how we're gonna move forward with this, but not enough to wreck the budget. But I just think that the whole point of that committee was to find a plan that set forward a program that we wouldn't have to keep worrying about. So.
Which committee met yesterday? It was the grant committee.
It was the grant committee, not CRC, or, I'm sorry, CRC.
It was not a council committee.
It was not a council committee. Yes, ma'am.
Hey, Brad.
Let me clarify a few things. Number one, you're right. That committee meeting yesterday, which was advertised, it's the Community Reinvestment Grant Committee, 3 people. In our discussion yesterday, and Jonathan was there as a member of the public, anybody could come, that the way we've been doing it needs fixed. Because we need to not only take care of the folks who represent the city and do a lot of work for the city and encourage growth in the city, we also need to encourage those folks who have businesses and who want to be involved in more of what's going on in Wilmington. Jonathan brought up a very good point that none of us really knew about. In a couple of years, there's some things happening in the city that are going to be very big. That's going to bring a lot of tourism to this area. So we're trying to get this thing put into a position of where it's less hands-on, more automatic, but still can meet the needs of the people who aren't necessarily associated with the Murphy or the Historical Society or Main Street. So there is still work to be done on this. And I think it is the 28th, if I remember right. So the committee we're still rewriting some of the provisions in it, but what the mayor said is that's the area we're trying to get to. So people can know ahead of time if they're running the Murphy, or if they're running the Historical Society, or if they're leading Main Street, they know within reason what's going to happen every year. So all I can tell you, there's more to come. What the mayor said is what we're trying to focus towards, but we'll know even more, and everybody's welcome to come to this. But if it is an open, I think what we're doing on the 20th is another open meeting that we'll advertise. So.
I hear Wilmington. Did somebody say Wilmington?
Yeah, they've applied for these funds as well throughout. So, you know.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I was clear. And the Main Street funds at this point come out of the general fund.
Yes, they do.
Right.
Rather than,
Are we moving those to retained hotel lodging tax? Okay.
so I just, clarity. I think it's great. Just discuss it and figure it out. Move forward. Okay, do we have further discussion on the budget?
I would like clarity about what you want to happen before the first reading.
In this regard?
In this regard, within that fund, are you asking me to back out those lines and recategorize them into one? Or are you asking to let it ride and then let the legislation catch up with it? I just need to know.
I'm comfortable letting it ride. I'm likely will get with Councilmember McKay and schedule a meeting. So I don't know that essentially we've got 3 meetings left this year and 3 readings of this budget. So I'm trying not to create special meetings for anybody, but at the same time, I want to make sure that we're moving forward the right way.
And I want to make clear that what was discussed yesterday, we were going to take it to committee. I mean, everybody agreed that this should be taken to committee before anything really happened. Just to have, make sure everybody's on the same page and nobody's trying to do anything that anybody dislikes. So I want to make that perfectly clear. And I don't know who's involved in those. I know there was an email sent out, and Brad, I know I'm on that email. I just don't know who else was on that email. But that's why I was there. And Brad said as a member of the public, and that was that. But there were no other committee members there or anything of that nature. Sunshine law.
Clear?
I'm clear, I won't amend it before the meeting. Okay.
Now we need to move forward with budget discussion, however that's supposed to proceed.
Well, we do have all the department heads here, so basically we presented last time. You've had an opportunity to look at it, if there are any questions, we're all here, so we're happy to answer any questions.
I did have a question, since I wasn't here, and I don't see the police chief, but.
He's the only one missing.
Okay, and Brian, you may or may not be able to answer this, or the
Okay.
mayor, or whoever. I thought somewhere in a video, or, I did watch the budget session, I want everybody to know that. And in that, or in an email or something, I thought it said something about bringing back the bike patrol. Is that on the horizon, or is that just a wish list right now that is not included in this budget?
My understanding, I don't want to speak for the chief, but my understanding from what he presented, the bike patrol and the K-9 are both in the budget.
Both in the budget,
Yes,
okay.
sir.
And do we know, and by the bike patrol, are we gonna have patrol 24 hours a day, or is it gonna be like set hours?
It won't be set
Go
up,
ahead.
nothing
Well,
too predictable. We do it at random.
well, yes, I guess I should have
It's the
said
same
set
way
out.
with the dog.
Right.
We don't want the other side
Mhm.
to know what our schedule is.
Sure.
I think they're saying it's available 24 hours a day, but not on a set schedule.
That's
Is
correct.
that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. I shouldn't have said set hours,
Yep.
but I realized that after I said it. I shouldn't have said that.
But it's not something that will run 24 hours, I think.
No, it isn't.
Not like a patrol.
Yeah, maybe we'll run, first shift on a Wednesday, second shift on a Thursday, or, it'll rotate it now.
Okay.
But both of those are in the budget.
Okay.
And just to clarify too on the dog will always be available.
Sure.
If a car is stopped and we need the dog, that dog's coming in. But the dog will also be on a rotating schedule, and the canine also, of course.
I had another question, and this comes to the cemetery, and this is, and I don't really know who to present this to, maybe this is a Brian question more than anybody. For the indigent burials, I know we had an uptick in those, and I know we've got budgeted, I think, $3,000, and I did not bring my set with me, I just left work. But I had that highlighted. Is that gonna be, and I don't think from my budget, from my worksheet, I don't remember us using that money last year, but maybe we did. Is $3,000 enough for the indigent burials? Because I remember a few years ago when we inherited the cemetery, we had to up that because of everything that was happening. And I didn't know if there was still an uptick in indigents, and we would have to go back and revisit this.
Andrew could probably, you could probably answer this better than I can.
Sure, we have had indigent burials, sort of, this year, but it was a special case where the city did not end up having to pay for it. The person ended up having a piece of property, the funeral home bartered it out. So I would say 3,000 is appropriate. We only had one this year.
Okay.
Last year, I think we had 3 or 4, but still not enough to ask for a supplemental. So I think we're doing okay on there.
Okay, and I wondered about that since we took all that over. Are we still on a rotating basis if we have indigents with the funeral homes?
Yeah, indigents come to us in 2 different ways. One is a funeral home will bring one to us, and then the other way is the coroner, or in our area or like Montgomery County will call us. When they call us, we explain to them that they need to work with, because they have to go through a funeral home to make those arrangements, to do the burial permits and all of that. So when they come to us, then we rotate which funeral home we send them to, so that there's no preference. So, and all the funeral homes have agreed to that at this point.
Cool. Thank you. And then my last question is, how about the bridge in the cemetery? I know we talked about that, and you weren't pleased with those bids. Are we gonna go to the county?
So yes, I am in discussion with the county about that right now. We did reject the bids because they came in at 405,000 was the lowest bid, which was way, way over what we're allowed to accept. We're also looking at some other alternative ideas as well, where we may be able to do it for much less. So we're exploring a couple possibilities.
Because when I saw bridge maintenance in there, I was like, oh, I don't know if that would be enough.
No, that does not cover our bridge. No, that does not.
All my
So
other,
really trying to sort through that.
all my other questions have been taken care of.
I have a question on the transit budget, professional and technical services, $81,000. Can you elaborate on that a little bit for us?
I can.
It's, page 5.
That is the dispatch system that we just got, the new dispatch system. Is that correct? Do you have that?
Do you have a note on that?
I'm sorry, what?
What? I'm supposed to be able to ask about the-
Do I have notes
Yes,
on
it
it?
is,
You
I'm
have
sorry, I
no-
have it. It's the new dispatch system, so we're going with share mobility, so it increased it quite a bit. We will be rolling out hopefully in December is the new the new date for us to roll it out. We're trying to finalize the last kinks in the dispatch system, and then we've gotten iPads and we're ready to start rolling with an automated process now. We're looking to potentially maybe expand hours depending upon the needs and all that kind of stuff, not having to have a dispatcher there 24/7 while we're open. So it's just the automated dispatch system is the answer to the question. That's the increase for it. I know it went up quite a bit, but it's worth it. In the end, whenever we have all of our data readily available in our hands, we'll have a lot more information for you guys, documented. It'll
Is
help
that
us
an
out.
ongoing cost? Like, will we expect that year after year? So it was never designed to offset the labor of not having a dispatcher there all the time, correct?
It was not designed to do that, however, it will most likely, the thing is, the plan is to eventually be able to expand our hours, because we're not hitting the entire scope of all the needs in the city right now. So if we're able to expand hours, once we get the dispatch system in there, we don't have to have a dispatcher 24/7, we're only open from 6:30 to 7:30 currently. If we can have it set up to where people can actually just go online to a portal, which is how it's gonna be set up, they can go online to a portal, book their ride, and then we only have to have like 1 or 2 drivers, in the wee hours of the night. That'll help quite a bit to be able to still bring in more money, but yet at the same time be able to help all of our patrons that need it, because people aren't able to get to work. We know that there are issues, we've been working with Clinton County, I don't know, whatever it is.
Job and Family Services?
Yeah, them too. Jonathan knows who it is. Anyway, sorry, I don't remember all the names. We've been working with a lot of different places trying to figure out, like, what can we do to help employers get their employees to and from work.
So do you anticipate expanding hours earlier in the day or later in the evening, or?
Potentially both. We want to be able to cover second and third shift, getting people to and from work, but like I said, right now we have to take baby steps, and we have to get a dispatch system that'll get us where we need to be now for the hours that we currently have, and then we'll be able to expand from there. So we've been working with CARE to get that implemented, and it's a good system that is able to flex with us as we need it,
This system should make us much more efficient. as
much
well.
more efficient. So ODOT wants us to run more as a public transportation company, not as a taxi service.
I have a question, and I don't know if, this might be a Mary Kay question, but do we still have any outstanding revolving loan fund loans?
Yes.
We-
Yeah. Yes.
I saw the budget and that was, I think, $1,000.
I missed.
Does the revolving loan fund, UDAG money, does the repayment of those loans go back to that line, or is that,
Yes.
Yes.
okay? So is that our anticipated repayment for the year, is that what that 1,000 comes from?
I think it was just an incidental line in the UDAG fund.
Okay.
We don't appropriate out what is actually in the fund unless we're giving a loan. And then we ask for the appropriation, and then we do it that way, so the appropriation doesn't match the cash in the fund.
There are some fees and stuff that, you know, we do some searches and some other things when we
Right.
approve a loan, so that's probably to handle those type of costs.
Yeah.
The two things happen, when we get a payment back on that, the principal and money goes into the revolving loan fund, the interest goes into the general fund. It doesn't increase that. And that was something else beside the hotel lodging tax. We appropriated, I think, what, $200,000 or $215,000 to go someplace else out of that revolving loan fund. So there are still sufficient funds there because we only got 5 loans outstanding, so I was just wondering, and that's not, the mayor, the law director, and myself were on that committee, the 3-person committee, and we take the applications and do it, and just now increasing, and we had 3 years previously, we had high interest. We've earned out of that money from the money that I deposited in other funds that, so it's been increasing, so there's something that needs to be done with that. We've talked about improvements that have gone on in the streets and the buildings and stuff like that, whether we ought to be creating something, we give $5,000 or $10,000 back to the people that are painting their structures outside or putting windows in. So that's something that I talked with other people
You're thinking
about.
like a rebate post project?
Yeah, I think we ought to post it back to when COVID started, and because they did across from the Murphy, all of them are there. So that's something that we're looking at to spend out of that fund next year. But
It doesn't get used as much as it used to. for sure.
it doesn't get used, and it's a repayment of the principal, and the nonprofit's at 0 interest. So it's something that's there and available, but we don't really advertise it. We know it's there. We maybe need to more, but that's something that's we need to address also beside the hotel lodging tax. But, you know, that, as everybody, well, a few people that were here on council before, everybody knows, you know, that's the 3% that the hotel charges, that it comes back to us. And in the past, before we split it up, it all went to the Convention Visitors Bureau. As the county, all of it has to go. ORC says all the county has to, but the ORC doesn't say that all the city had to. So that's how we created half of the 3% comes here. But, I mean, I wasn't involved in the committee that decides who can use that, but in my thought process, it should be used by the businesses that bring people to town. I'm not sure that it ought to be with all the other nonprofits or all the other companies in town that needed to expend other type of things that aren't bringing visitors to town, because that's where the money comes from. So that needs to be a question. And you could take the revolving loan fund, some of that money, and throw it into use.
Is the revolving loan still 1%? If there were, was it 1%?
We have it at 0 for nonprofits, and it goes up, and it's set to be a maximum of 50,000. I think we did approve one for 75.
Thank you for that.
Other questions?
I had a few, I thought something, but I'd be able to find what I have around too, so I think I'm good on my facilities issues.
We did do some renumbering,
Yeah.
just to correct some numbering issues that we had. So things aren't exactly where they used to be.
Anybody? These folks are here to answer our questions, so if you don't ask, it's your fault. If not, we'll move on down the agenda. Does anybody have anything for us?
We're comfortable with the document as it is being the attachment to a first reading today.
Yes.
Sounds like yes.
I mean, are we voting?
Not right now.
We're taking a roll call.
If we have a general consensus that we're okay with the document. Because if we're not, we need to know that. Okay, then the budget work session is over. And we do have finance committee, Michael.
We sure do. Before you, gentlemen, are 16 supplemental appropriations for $728,102. not auditor Vance by any means, but I will attack this list from the summary of the refinance items, see if there's any specific questions about any specific items. So we have the summary form that kind of outlines everything. I had no specific questions, there's just a lot that's in the year, we're processing a lot of things for supplemental, so I don't know if any of you folks have any specific questions about these 16 items.
My only question is on item N, which is
The charging stations.
charging stations. My concern with that is that it says for downtown locations. In my estimation, we've got 2 of them downtown now. I'll probably never own an electric vehicle. If I take my driver's license away before my car run, the wheels fall off my car right now, so I'll probably never own it. But nonetheless, it just seems to me like downtown probably is not the best location for those. We have 2 now at Wilmington Cleavers. Would it not be more appropriate to put them someplace where people drive, i.e. shopping center,
Back in the Kroger lot.
back in the Kroger lot?
Walmart.
Walmart. Those are all private,
It's all private
property. We have to put them on public property.
Well, a lot of those butt right up there, right away. Parking lot at, in front of, Planet Fitness.
Right. I think that would be private property, parking lot, would be private property, that's the issue. We had to find spots that were public property, that the city owned.
I thought, Wilmington Savings did theirs at their own expense. Probably as a traffic generator or a business enhancement device. I can't help but think that some of these other places would welcome that as well.
Could you collaborate formally or informally? I don't know.
Is the reimbursement required to be public?
Does that be public land or
That's
private?
my understanding, that it's for government. The reimbursement, it's 100% reimbursement from AES for us to install these on our property.
So we now designate 3 more parking places downtown for these?
No, they would be in existing parking locations. And my understanding is that we would not designate them just for charging. That anybody could, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor, that anybody could park at in these locations that already exist. But there would be these charging stations in addition to.
Well, I don't have any problem with it being some of those, frankly, I just think.
And it is
You're more
100%.
I'd like us to give a little bit more thought as to where perhaps we could.
So I'm happy to show you the map and everything. There was, yeah,
You got a map.
there's a map that shows the locations. They studied this. This was the locations that they identified that they thought, AES that thought, and our consultant thought would be the best locations and the most use on city property. So I think there's like 20 stations. It's a lot, so.
Oh, it's 3 spaces but 20 different.
Yeah.
You
mhm.
have 3 areas.
Areas, 3 areas, yep.
Wait, they want to put in 20 charging stations?
I believe it's 20,
Is
isn't it?
that many?
I believe it's 20.
So are we talking like over the Fiesta Cruise lot? I'm gonna call that,
Yes,
Yeah.
Mural lot.
yes,
You're a lot.
our lot right here in the back.
Yep,
Couple
down by, down
curbside.
the corner. of- Yeah,
how about the Catholic lot?
that's private.
No,
Church owns that.
we talked about that.
Even though we paid it.
That was
The
not,
church still owns the property.
yeah, we weren't
Just
able to
making
do
sure.
that one.
And I'm assuming that they also are hoping that it becomes, that it's a downtown draw as well. I have to charge my car, I'm gonna park in the downtown.
Yeah.
Right.
Doesn't that store look nice? What else am I gonna do? Like,
I, like Nick, don't have an electric car, so I don't know. My understanding is that it requires a fair amount of time to fully charge one, so, I think this will just be kind of topping off, I don't think you're gonna park for 8 hours. Yeah. So,
You get a ticket probably.
Somebody stayed at a hotel.
overnight, yeah. But, to that end, I'm not against the idea either, it just seems wasteful. I don't know, 20 stations especially, it's so much money that it may take a long time for them to be used.
Did you say it's reimbursed?
100%.
Huh?
100%. Now, that doesn't include maintenance and stuff like that, but, yeah.
Well, I mean, we've always done good trying to find grants for projects, and,
Mhm.
you know, ideologically, I'm not against this, it just seems like no money's really ever free, so, you know, to that end, it's just not high enough on my radar, I don't wanna jump after it, but I'm, again, not against it, so.
One that amazes me is Wilmington State, because the amount of time.
How fast their turn is. Maybe somebody on the board's got an electric car.
Why they're doing it. Yeah, unless one of the board members has a.
I shouldn't say, I don't call anybody out in public meeting, but I thought the same thing, I was like, I'm in the bank for about 30 seconds when I go to the bank, but.
There's a lot of room in the cemetery.
They're gonna be there forever.
I go through drive it every day, I've never seen it yet. Never seen it yet.
Well, and my concern, I think I expressed this to Brian a little bit too, my concern is that if a parking space, and we are limited on that, if a parking space seems like it's dedicated for something, most people won't park there.
Right.
And to me, it discourages, now, I'll be proven wrong every day, I'm sure, but at least me as a pseudo conscientious driver, you know, if I see one, like, oh, I won't park there, I'll park, you know, find another spot. It's like, I remember the first time I ever pulled up to the diesel pump to get unleaded gas, and the death look I got from the guy in his big truck waiting for me to get out of the way. You know, so it's kind of being mindful of the fact that if I'm not gonna use it, don't take up space, right? So, that's, again, I'll let it go, so it's not that big a deal to me, but.
Any additional questions or comments on item N or the other 15 items?
Can you all, as the new guy, give me some history on item P? How we got to,
Trail match fund.
yeah, the trail match fund?
So the increase in costs on the trail, there were a lot of things that we just, when we were building a trail, there's a lot of stuff that you just don't see. And there were things that existed when we got out on site. We had to do change orders to make things right, because we didn't want to have to do it. We wanted to make it right, so there were change orders. And unfortunately, there was an increase in those costs to make things right. And that's what you're seeing for the trail.
The change orders on that were about a quarter of the final budget. I mean, they were huge.
One was that there was a bridge that we didn't even know that existed at the
Bridge
time.
number
Yeah.
5,
That
that
was,
was surprising.
that
It
was a
was
big
never, I
one.
mean,
Yeah.
we pay for engineering. I don't understand how we,
Yeah, how could you miss all of it?
I mean, again, I'm not coming here trying to bash on everything we're talking about, but like, you know, that, when I saw that project, I was like, we spent $2.5 million, $500,000 in these change orders? What did we pay for in the beginning?
So, and one of the things is that the planning period was so long. They started
Because of
looking
the
at
pandemic.
this and costing it out and then asking for money, what, 3 years
Yeah.
ago
Yeah,
at
the increase in
least?
costs.
So they got the funding for a project that cost this amount many years ago,
Right.
but we've just been able to get it completed now at new cost. So that's one of the big things, and really, we never understood, like, they walked it and walked it and walked it and like decided where the trail was gonna be, but for some reason, that fifth bridge, no one seemed to know it was really there.
Did the same people engineer Rama?
Yeah.
I'm starting to see a trend, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah, sorry.
yeah.
Let's go on like I see it. It's very frustrating to see, that's a very nice project, and I think it's a great addition to our community. I love the addition of trails. It's sad to see a project that we, you know, so many people were trying to fundraise. I know that Trails Coalition Group was raising money for it, we're putting in money, and just to see it continue to balloon with almost no, I mean, 25% of the project at the end of it is crazy.
The other
And-
thing that happened, Matt, it was really a wet trail. And we had to use probably double the amount of stone that we were expecting.
I mean, things you pay for in the engineer, you know, I mean, that's,
And like Anders pointed out, stone had gone up, concrete had gone up, everything in the construction industry had gone way up, time we got around to dumping cars.
And when they got the funding, they didn't really, they were like planners. It wasn't engineers really looking at it. They're like, it's a line, it's a railroad bed, how bad could it be? So,
25% worse.
Yeah.
That's how bad it
There's
is.
no issues with the railroads at all.
I mean, it give or take, but I think it's almost $600,000 of change over, so it's a lot.
I'm well aware.
Well, the other thing, there turned out to be a lot more railings that we had to put up. Because there are standards if,
If you're actually on above grade, you have to.
yeah, exactly. So for the amount of handrails, not handrails,
Guardrails.
guardrails,
Yeah.
that was
Well, it's
quoted in
fun
the
to
project, I think we almost used double that number.
Yeah, but
Because I can't have people riding a bicycle off the trail and fall in the creek 10 feet down.
The
Oh, no, I
location
get it.
would be problematic.
does this supplemental finalize that expenditure? Is this the final?
It gets us through the construction.
Yeah,
Okay.
we made some promises about security and stuff like that we're gonna have to figure out.
As far as the stone is concerned, I mean, anybody who's ever built anything to do with roadways or anything else understands that the base has to be there. So if we had to pay extra money for stone to get the right base, then it saves us money
Down the road.
5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, whatever. Do it right the first time and then you won't have that expense, so I understand that.
It was wet, it was so, like you said, it was so wet.
I mean, I'm sure they didn't do test works like that.
And we didn't put a ton of money into engineering on this, because again, it was a trail. So then when you get out there and you start building it, then you're like, there's a wet spot, come out and look at it. And then you have to figure out how to, you know.
We had to add drainage structures and
Well,
catch basins
lot more
and 36-inch pipe going
draining areas.
underneath and just,
It was just one thing after another.
Aside from item NNP, any additional questions?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Bob. Did we answer your question? I got off on tangent,
I'm
sorry.
easier with Superintendent Schaefer. I don't know if there was any questions about those. They look pretty cut and dry too. $1198, so. Any other questions at all? I need to move this to the main meeting, or is it just, I forget what we did last time we did this.
just, yes, move it. You could vote to move it, or we could have a sensible meeting, whatever.
I said, do we need to?
I just don't know what I need, sorry.
It's already on the agenda.
Just the workshop is already on there.
All right,
Yeah.
and we
Yeah,
also.
we're gonna take it off, then we had.
Oh, okay, we also have 8 miscellaneous transfers that are allocated, or outlined. Mary Kay talks about there's cover costs at the end of the year. Any specific questions about these 8 miscellaneous transfers?
No, I was, my interest was piqued with the transferring from acting clerk to judge salary, but, I'm sure those temporary judges will get paid, so. Yeah, my flag went up immediately, and I was like, oh, that's probably, that's on my head.
Anyone else? Anything else? I think we're good, Mr. President.
Thank
Now,
you.
one quick question on
Yes,
transfers.
sorry.
Composting expenses to collection vehicle expense, does that fix the recycling truck? Why not
That's
recycling
the
truck?
line that we will use.
That's the first one.
That's the line that we'll use to fix the recycling truck, but it's not necessarily money just for that.
E, are you talking about E or?
Hey.
Gotcha, sorry, that's not, gotcha.
It should be done tomorrow. That's what they tell me anyway. So,
Business as usual next week.
should be. That's the plan.
There's no additional questions.
Thank you, Mr. Albright. Nothing else on our agenda to discuss?
Mr. President, I was just reminded of something.
Yes,
Are we allowed to go back to the budget work session real quick?
I suppose.
Okay, because I did not have my notes with me. Who prepared the judicial budget this year?
His staff,
Okay.
Michael's daughter's staff.
Okay. I was just curious, since we had visiting judges and
Yeah.
not
And
really
I-
too sure what's cooking.
I can tell you, he was very much involved in that budget before he passed away.
I was just curious, since we were kind of in a limbo situation.
Yeah, we're
And if
really
they come back, you know, asking for supplementals or whatever we needed, so I just wanted to have that on record on who prepared it and how it was prepared. So, thank you.
Anybody else on budget? I'd ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We are adjourned. Thank you all for coming.
See you later.
See you on the